a bit further out from the back, perhaps. I think I'm getting a feeling the water's a bit deeper there. I've got him. Well, well. I said I was going to catch a fish and I've caught one. That's a magnificent effort. The result of character and concentration. That's it. Now the fish are feeding, of course. It's probable we can catch quite a few. So we'll put the keep net in the water and perhaps settle down to see if there are more to come. I didn't wait to see if there are any more to come. I walked home slowly in the hope the tea party was over. Watching that again, I realised what happened in the rest of that year. It never stopped raining. It never stopped raining from March until September. It was tremendous, the floods, and they filled the whole valley and they blocked the bridges. We went driving around looking for a bridge we could get across, and sometimes it took us double journey home. That sort of thing. Yet, the fact is that the good Lord was only making up on his rain, because in the year before that, it never rained at all. It was the worst drought since 1922, and I remember 1922 because I was about that high and I drove a horse in a hay rake up and down the field trying to scrape up more than about a ton of hay out of about 6 acres of land. In the ensuing year, after that wet that we've just seen, it got hotter and hotter and hotter, drier and drier and drier. Finally, the bushes began to burn and the trees began to die. And every morning when we got up on the farm, we looked out of the bedroom window to see the smoke of the forest fires all around us, up on the peatland, wondering how close they were getting to our hedges. And I can show you what that year looked like too. I'm going to show you some dreary pictures of a very grim year. If I were to show these pictures to anybody who lived where I did in the forest and ask them what year it was, they would say without hesitation, 1976. Look at the dried sphagnum moss. Normally this is that green, beautiful moss that the florists use in order to put in flower baskets. But there was obviously trouble coming because the moss had dried right up, and it was quite clear that it wouldn't be long before the fires came. You see, this was once a lonely land where just the few people who lived and farmed there as commoners and ran their cattle on the forest lived. And they all knew of the danger of fire. But now this is a great public place. This has become one of the playgrounds, one of the areas where the countryside is used for recreation, as all the town pressure groups now urge. And there can be anything up to 60,000 cars in a week come down to this place for people who don't know the dangers of the countryside. And the danger of this particular countryside is that it is peat land. In other words, it is largely built up of the dried and consolidated vegetation of back to prehistoric times. And so the whole thing is potentially just a wick. And when the fires started, and they started here, there and everywhere, and the winds came up to move them, they were started, it was noticeable, almost always in the places, downwind of the places where the visitors mostly gathered. And the animals of the forest were absolutely bemused. There were 3,000 cattle or so, and there were 1,500, 2,000 wild ponies that live in this forest were finding it. We're wandering over places where normally they can get a living, finding that they couldn't. And of course they're territorial animals. They tend to stay in their own particular parts of the forest. So when a piece of land is burnt out like this, they are leery of moving into other parts and meeting other animals, but the hunger drives them. You see, this was a great patch of gorse, tall, well-grown gorse, which usually is blazing yellow for 6 or 7 months of the year. Now the whole thing is black, burnt out ash, and the wind driving through it. At various points in the forest these things started, and they ran along with the wind, and the danger was that the fires would meet one another, and thus if you could get upwind of the point like this where the fire was started, you could find yourself on unburnt land where the animals were beginning to gather, because they found that there was still a bit of a living to be got there.